evening, my name is Sir Colin Attenborough, and today it's the third week of Sir Colin November, and it's come to my attention that David is actually planning on making a video about mice tea, and I'm not going to go so low as to take away his furry hentai from him. So with that in mind, today instead of talking about the tea visual novel, I'm going to talk about the coffee visual novel, Caffeine, Victoria's Legacy. And you are in for a hell of a ride. The game begins with you playing as a young man named Taka Knight. You are on a plane on your way to Japan, and the woman sitting next to you offers you a cup of coffee. Well, of course, you accept. You take a little sip, and suddenly the plane explodes because she was a coffee terrorist. And this part you really just ought to witness for yourself.
Let the fear go away. Caffeine will show you the way. Stop fighting, stop looking. What you see is not even real. Let me show you. Close your eyes so your imagination can fly. You forgot, that's okay. Caffeine will remind you the way. You were lost, it found you. Hold on, your journey's just begun. This world is caffeinated. Everything around you is magic. Caffeine always finds a way. Let it show you its magical way. Stop believing, stop believing. Caffeine will take your breath away. Caffeine will take your breath away.
If I wasn't intrigued before, I certainly am now. But the early game does come across a little strange, and my feelings were very mixed on it. For one, look at these sprites. Look at the eyes. Those eyes stare into your soul. Something is wrong. You'd be surprised by how many of the voice actors in this game you might recognize. For example, this is Kira Buckland.
Like, you have beautiful hair. You have lovely blue eyes. Instead, he compares the woman of his dreams to a cup of latte.
One of the few people in the game who was actually cast in a role that seems to fit her voice. This is Diana Garnett.
You're right. It is a blessing in disguise. I should be grateful for what happened. That is a positive way of seeing things.
I can't say that I knew of her beforehand, but evidently she has quite a good voice if you listen to the end credits. I just don't think she does a very good British accent. And this is Arcane Song, famous from games such as Panzer Hunter back to the 90s, which is quite jarring when she starts across someone who starred in, Heart of the Woods.
You don't have to say sorry, Alice. It's your business. You should have the final say on how it's run. I was being unreasonable. I should apologize.
No, that's not true. You're right, Mel. The business isn't doing well. I knew about it all along. But I couldn't accept it. I acted as if nothing was wrong.
You've also got people like...
It was such a beautiful, peaceful day. It seems that I can't just enjoy a cup of coffee by myself, can I?
Elissa Park, my beloved! And of course there is...
Of course! Charcoal stoves are the best for boiling water. It gives the water a sweet taste with a soft texture. Nothing goes anywhere near its quality.
I'm sorry, who are you? Really? Katie Dagnan? You chose Katie Dagnan to play this role?
Of course! It's October and the chrysanthemum blooms during the month. Oh, it's always desirable to place the month's flower goddess on the table.
What have you done to my favorite dumbass?
You're a dumbass.
Excuse me?
You heard me! God, you piss me off! Your dear old granddad ain't crying up in heaven because you decided to do some bride in the back of his RV.
But I used her.
You call that using? Give me a break! I use those slackers all the time. That's using. Hell, if anything, you probably don't use her enough. I'd feel like a real jackass if some dumbass were calling me all the time and all I could do was sit there. People use people all the time. That's what makes them family. So if you're gonna hate yourself, find a reason that doesn't suck.
I will say Elsie Lovelock plays her role quite excellently, though.
Unpatriotic. There has never been a house as patriotic as House Argyle. Everything we do for the crown.
Does the crown even agree?
The crown is oblivious to what's best for the nation. That's why our house has always taken matters into our own hands. It has always been that way.
We have a word for that, and it's treason.
It's treason, then.
My early feelings on the game, I admit, were very mixed. The writing in the early game is a little awkward. By little, I mean this author just failed to make "the room was lit by the moonlight" read naturally, and yet as you progress, it becomes clear that perhaps this author is actually rather clever. You have arrived in a city named Victoria. It was founded by Queen Victoria, and it's all about coffee. It's the coffee visual novel. It's coffee wizard steampunk isekai. People drink coffee and it gives them magical powers. Since in Victoria drinking coffee can give you magical powers, there is an enormous demand for expensive coffee beans. However, the southern coffee plantations are built near volcanoes and one of them erupts. So suddenly, the market needs to rely on foreign imports, and since foreign traders have no use for the local Victorian currency, they exchange it for gold. And that causes issues with currency liquidity, which is threatening to crash the entire Victorian economy because everyone drinks too much coffee. And how do you solve this? With a coffee magic duel with the big bad? No, you propose legislation changes which allows foreign merchants to purchase property in Victoria, which is highly prestigious and keeps the currency local. And I so wish I was making this up, but I haven't even touched on any of the character routes yet. But let's start to do just that. There are 4 routes, or 5, or maybe 4 or even 3. It's a bit hard to count, because Alice's route is a little... how do I put this? It's a little superficial. It didn't feel like it had very much meat on it. Her route is essentially, to hell with all the intrigue, let's just make coffee. I admit my personal bias with Mel's route might be influencing it a little. I like Kira Buckland, I like her voice, and She's one of the few characters whose voice really fits the character. And I do believe that her route, although it's not the one with the most meat on it, is very interesting because you go and topple a slave empire with a Starbucks barista. Then there's Ocean, and her route ties in quite a bit more with the main plot, but really what becomes clear as you continue to play the game is that the main plot is everywhere. Everything ties in, and that's why this game I would estimate to be somewhere between 30 and 40 hours long. And the more of it you play, the better it becomes. At first I was thinking, oh god, do I have to play more of this drivel? And then I was thinking, well, okay, that was rather interesting. And then I was thinking, did I just drink a cup of coffee and stop time? And things just seem to keep progressing. Every single one of the major character routes, sort of except for Alice's, ties in together at the end in the night route, which unlocks after you've gotten all the other good endings. Except for Alice's. Because Alice doesn't matter. And really, what I like about this game is that it seems very generic with this little coffee magic thing to sort of get you going. But the farther along you go, the more batshit insane things get, and I like visual novels where things start off fairly normal and then get batshit insane. Because they're a little slow at first, but, 20 or 30 hours down the line, you're standing there at the Coffee Barista Championships, and someone just had a sip of a coffee and all their clothes exploded, and you're wondering, how did we get here? Because I don't think I noticed a point where things ever went batshit insane. Perhaps I also ought to note that there's a point where the main villain gets tired of the whole cat and mouse game and just mails you a pipe bomb instead. That really sold me. So, Caffeine, Victoria's Legacy, on the whole, it is fairly rough around the edges, but I do recommend it. It has heart. It has soul. And I value those quite a bit in a visual novel. But there's actually one more thing for today, because I've discovered that my cousin, Sir David Attenborough, has been making some reaction videos, and I thought I might have a little look at one of them and see what he's saying. Now, let's have a look here.
And I am here to watch the first one. And all I can say already is that poster, I've seen that in a child's room. I beat the child with my baguette 5 times in a row. The child had a concussions at the end. That is your problem for having such shitty poster.
Well,
okay? Have a true
it seems
poster.
that it's time for me to again engage in the most ancient and noble of British traditions.
I am French.
Going to war with France.
Of course, they need to have a baguette in their hand.
Tongues of fire on Idris flaring, you the foeman did declaring to the